As you can see, the agenda is full today, and we are going to start off with Pierre Eves and George Scott talking about the theme Employee Engagement and Productivity with the Microsoft 365 apps, specifically Viva and Loop. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Ken. So we're going to start to present the announcement around some Microsoft apps, a little bit update on Viva, and I think the one pretty interesting thing we're going to try to demonstrate, because we have some early access to it, but it's unstable, so don't be afraid, which is Loop, Microsoft Loop. So let's talk about some apps. So it's not an app, but it's a part of Microsoft Editor. There's a new feature called Context IQ, where I'm going to show you a GIF that shows you that while you're typing an email, you will, for example, talking about a document, it will be able to find the document and relate to the document directly in the email. There's some new features in forms, so you can create your collection of forms to better organize your forms. But what is going to be very impactful for the end users, and I'm going to show you that also, is the new Office.com UI that is changing for better experience. You'll see that also. And I'm going to just have a little talk about progressive web apps, which is there for a long time, but OneDrive now is part of progressive web apps, and more applications from Microsoft 365 Suite will be available in the progressive web apps environment in Edge. So there were some updates about Viva. First, there are some new features coming to Viva Insights. Like you're going to see, there's a new My Team tab in the Viva Insights, so you can create now virtual teams. So if you want to have insights about your teams, you're working with a team, you want to know if you missed any documents, if you had meetings with your teams, there are going to be some insights thanks to Viva Insights. And it's good to know that all the Viva components are now available. They're in GA, all of them, including Viva Learning. So you can right away use them. And we also, I don't know if you mentioned that, Ken, but we also offer a briefing for our customer to introduce you to Viva and all the 4 components. There's a new components coming to Viva, which was purchased by Microsoft, which is called Ally.io. It's an OKR product that will be added later on next year in the Viva Suite. And there's a new pricing with Viva Suite. It's if you buy all 4 components, it's $9 per users per month. So it's a pretty good price. And there's so there are other features that I'm going to talk about, especially around Viva Topics. If you know Viva Topics, now you know that you can over topics card in a SharePoint site, a modern SharePoint site. But what if you want to over that same card in Teams and Outlook? It's going to come soon. So there's a few updates about that, but I think Microsoft Loop is definitely something very interesting, because it's and maybe I'll let George talk about it, but it's a new component that comes to Microsoft 365 Suite.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is George Scott. So Loop builds on what's called the Fluid framework, which was released at Build earlier this year. And there's already, if you're using a preview version of Teams, you can see some of the Fluid framework components in there. And that's what Pierre Eves and I are going to try and demo moving forward. So it's now the Fluid framework stuff is going to be renamed to Loop, and it consists of components, which is what was out before, and they added a couple of more components at Ignite, and they'll be releasing more as it goes. Pages, which would be an individual workspace. So consider, OneNote on steroids, where you can just take a bunch of components and put them in there. So you could maybe take a dashboard from Dynamics have a voting table, a project table in there, and it's all live, right? And then you can take those pages and build them into a workspace for teams to work together. So a lot of people that I've, in podcasts I listen to have compared pages and workspaces to a product that's out there called Notions. So if you're using Notions, and that might give you an idea of what's coming here. The difference is that Microsoft is putting together a standalone app, and they're integrating it throughout the Microsoft Office 365 environment along with Dynamics. And so you'll be able to use these components throughout the entire system. I've got those components listed below. Before there was agenda, notes, and task events. At Ignite, they added a voting table and status tracker. They haven't made it in the preview yet, but they'll be there soon. And that standalone app is coming in 2022. You can take the data that's from Loop. So what PY and I are going to show is a table. That table is actually stored in a file in your OneDrive. So whoever creates the table in this instance, it'll be PY. If we went into his OneDrive, there would actually be right now a fluid file, but down the road a Loop file that could be shared just like any other file. Can we go to the next slide? I took the liberty of taking a couple of these snips off of the Microsoft website just to show you what it looks like. We're going to try and show you some of this stuff, but just in case, this gives you a good example. So the idea is that they're putting a voting table right in a chat in Teams, and it's a group chat, and anybody that's in the chat can go in and modify it directly in Teams. If you're not on Teams, you can use the Microsoft Office app to modify it. So as of right now, this doesn't work in the mobile app. So you just click a link and it'll take you into the Microsoft app, and that'll allow you to modify it. Go to the next one, please. This is just another example, when we get there, where they're doing the status tracking. These are the ones that were announced at Ignite. So you can see, where they're actually building kind of a project plan, and it's right there. This could be in an email. It could be in a calendar event. In this instance, it's sitting into chat. We'll go to the next slide. And PY, we're going to see if the demo gods are good to us.
Let's try it. So I'm going to share my screen. So we started this morning. It was really unstable, so sorry if it's not working, but we started a loop. So to start a loop, you'll see in the chat, you'll see this little object here, which is called live components. And we can, so the type of components that are available in preview mode here are those ones. So I can create a table, I can create a task list, I can create different components. We created a table, and now that I created this table, you can see that Ken is typing something here. You can, when you type something, for example, if I want to assign Ken, I just have to @mention Ken, and I will have his name popping, and it will receive a notification by email. I can also, there's some components in the table that are specific. For example, if I type the date for today, the 12/9, it will find this is a date, and it will show me here that I can replace it with maybe a date, and it find out it's a date for today. But if I want to go in the data section, which is next week, so if I type 12/16, then it will find it's a date, and it will propose me to insert the total date. So that's, and you can see who's working in the loop in the live component here, and you can do that whenever you want. You don't have to be live. If it's live, it's fine. If it's after the fact, it's fine. And if you click on this link, you will also see a web page. So you have the preview of this same table in a web page, and you can do the same job here. So just to show you that this experience will happen in the browser, in the desktop, Teams desktop app, also on the mobile. So I did the try, and it works on the mobile too. So it's really a compelling experience, and that's what I wanted to show. Now I'm going to switch to other components that I mentioned. So the content, the editor, content IQ. As soon as you're typing the name of a document, it will try to solve it, find it, and insert in the email. Also, when you type mention somebody, you will see not only the person or the name of the person that can be mentioned, but also the documents that are related to the person. So it's supposed to help you to go faster when you're trying to do something with an email and mentioning people. The form site, so you'll have the ability to create different collections. You can create a collection. So I just played here creating empty collections, and when you have survey, you can just drag and drop your surveys in different categories. So it's a way to organize your forms. What is really new in topics, what I told you, you can in an email or wherever actually you will be able to mention. They call that hashtag to make it simple, but you can hashtag a topic name, and you will have access. Doing that, the person who will receive the email will have access to the topic card corresponding to this hashtag. So that will help you to discover information way more easily. In Viva, so Viva Learning changed the UI, as you're going to see in a second. So that's a brand new UI, but the mechanism are the same, and it's hopefully it's going to show up. Maybe it's let's try Viva Insight while it's updating. It's just when you do the demo that it's not working anymore. So let's give it a last try. If not, I'm switching to Viva Topics. So Viva Topics is a new tab called My Team, where you can create your own team and add people in this team, and you will see insights corresponding to your team, and you will see, if you schedule meetings with them, what are your habits, and you can plan some campaign like Microsoft like to plan this no meeting campaign day. So you can say for one day this week or next week, whatever, you can block the date not to have any meetings. And that's funny because when you do that, it sends a meeting to everybody. So not having a meeting, it sends a meeting to everybody. Let's try Viva Learning. Okay. So now you can see the new UI. It's easier to navigate. What's interesting is when you search for a training, for example, now you can surface content providers. So either you take the LinkedIn Learning, the Microsoft 365 training, Microsoft Learn, and also all the partners that Microsoft can connect to. But also you can surface your own content that you can store in SharePoint. By doing that, for example, I'm just going to show you that I store some videos, my own videos, and my own PowerPoint. It's not just videos. You can also surface some content like Word, Excel, PowerPoint documents right into the Viva Learning experience. So that's it about my demo. Oh no, I forgot the new office.com. So let's go back to office.com if I can find it, just to show you the new preview of office.com. So you can see on the left side, there's a new tray with new icons. There's a new icon called My Content, where you can surface all your content really quickly, and you could do that before, but it was maybe less accessible. You can sort the content. Here I don't have a lot of content. It's a demo lab, but tenant. But you can filter by people, by meetings. You can see your cloud files. You can even navigate your local files and attachment in your emails. What's interesting in this new UI, there are new features. Like, for example, if I browsing my content and I say, oh, I need to plan a meeting to talk about this document, you can go here and you have new features, and they're right under your document. For example, first you can open directly the document, but you can share an email and copy link. Before that, you have to click several times. But what is interesting here, I want to plan a meeting about this document. So I just plan it, and it will launch my calendar. And what will be is very interesting, it will add the link to the document directly. It will resolve the link, and then you can plan your meeting just like that. And finally, there's new features that help you to filter quickly your documents. That's very handy, because if you, for example, if I just want to see only my videos, I click in one click, I can filter to all my videos, and I can filter also with other criteria. And so it's very, very easy. And I think Microsoft is trying to put more people to come to Office.com and have a better experience. That's it for me.
All right, thanks, PY, and thank you, George. A couple of things here. We're running a little bit long on time, but I want to make sure I just remind you all, if you want a briefing on Viva, all the components of Viva, please send us an email or talk to your account rep or your cloud strategist. Want to congratulate PY for hitting 10,000 views on his YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it, definitely subscribe to that. He's going to put that in the channel, I believe. And over 250 YouTube videos there to check out content on Viva, on Loop, all kinds of great content there. And then lastly, of course, he just wrote that blog, so we want to make sure that you take a look at that blog from that was just published this week. So we've got a lot to go over and not too much time here. So let's do this quickly. Buckle your seatbelts. Thanks, guys. If there's one thing that we know, it's that hybrid work is here to stay, right? The big question is what will the next few years of work look like working remotely, and how will you prepare? Well, obviously, luckily, Microsoft has some great tools to handle that. So the anticipated Teams Connect shared channels is something everyone's been waiting for. What does this mean and why is it important? It means no more switching tenants. So with shared channels, Teams Connect, users can add individuals to a single channel rather than to an entire team. And so what's the big deal? Shared channels can be shared with individuals and teams across multiple organizations, right? So to enable easy access, shared channels appear within each team member, the tenant. So you don't even have to leave your tenant anymore. I mean, I used to have to go to a web version and my desktop version to be in two different tenants all day long. No more. With Teams Connect and shared channels, that allows you to stay in your own tenant and not have to switch back and forth, because it was a little bit clumsy if you're trying to do it from one browser. So the takeaway here is you probably, if you haven't started thinking about governance, which I hope you did, but if you haven't, you need to start thinking about this, governance for private channels, governance for how you're going to interact and federate with these other tenants. It's a great time to think about that, and this is what it's all about. So that's coming, I believe, in the very beginning part of next year. Hopefully, it's before March, but we'll have to see where that actually lands. For apps, lots of good information here. There's going to be a new app store. So there's a new redesigned Teams store coming, and you'll find a landing page optimized for finding apps that's easier and rotating banners so you can spotlight certain apps. You get intelligent recommendations, things like that. But the big thing here that admins need to be aware of is that users are now going, in the past, if a user went to go look for an app and you didn't have it in their store, it didn't exist. You didn't even know it existed. Well, what's happening now is the new user request experience capability will act as an indicator of users' interest in an app. So they will find that app, and that'll actually send a request off to use that app. And then that'll help build interest and have admins be able to figure out, how many people are really needing this app. So just heads up, admins, that may be coming your way. Collaborative apps are a new generation of applications, collaborations at the core, right? So these are designed and optimized specifically for hybrid work inside of Teams. They'll bring relevant processes, data, and people together to accomplish all kinds of things. So specifically Atlassian, SAP, ServiceNow, these are apps that are built right in for Teams integration. And if you're using any of these products, I strongly suggest you take a look at them and see what that's all about. On the theme of hybrid meetings, I wanted to spend just a few minutes talking about Teams Rooms updates. I feel like no one ever talks about it, but I think it's really important that we stay in the loop about, these in-person type of meetings as well that are happening. I'll get to the good stuff in a second. But so SIP Gateway, huge announcement. If you have existing Cisco phones, Poly Yealink audio code phones, you'll be able to program those phones to go right out through Teams on those actual existing legacy phones. So that's kind of cool. Not much more detail on that, but that could definitely be something you might be interested in. Teams rooms, if you use one of these schedulers that are like the panels outside of your rooms, it's something that's coming up here, and it'll be able to check into rooms. It'll also be able to use AI to see how many people are in the rooms. And if nobody actually checks in, it'll actually release the room from a scheduling standpoint. So if you're into that kind of automation and room reservation type of thing, it's something you may want to look at. This next one I really love. It's companion mode. So if you've ever been in an in-person meeting with a video conferencing facility room, you know that you're one of many people in that room, right? And so what Teams is all about is that individual experience. Well, with companion mode and companion devices, basically your own phone, Android and iOS, people in the room can use their own account to engage in the meeting using chat, live reactions. They can raise their hand. So it's not just, you're not just part of the room anymore. It'll sense that you're actually part of that meeting, and it'll let you actually share your video, share your audio. It turns off your audio by default so you don't have feedback issues. But for those who join in person from a companion device, their video will be hidden from the front room display, so it doesn't obviously cause any kind of distraction. This also frees up space in the meeting gallery so additional remote participants can be seen clearly. But the cool thing about this is if you're in that room, you can actually use your own device to raise your hand, do all kinds of interactive type stuff, send emojis, that kind of thing. Teams rooms, direct guest access, and BlueJeans and GoToMeeting. So direct guest join, what that means is you'll be able to use your Teams meeting room devices to basically join in onto conferences that are not just Teams meetings. So what the big announcement here is this is already available for Zoom and Cisco on your Teams rooms. Maybe people didn't even know that, and they were wondering if they should buy a Teams room. But this is now going to be available through the BlueJeans network, which is kind of like a gatewaying service to legacy products and to all kinds of products, and also to GoToMeeting. So you can actually use that room system, that Teams room system, into a GoToMeeting, and that's coming out, I believe, at the end of this year, early next year. Finally, for admins, a little bit of administration capabilities here. So if you have Surface hubs that are in your facilities from the Teams admin, along with other devices, you'll be able to actually start managing those devices remotely, which is kind of cool. For those of you looking for portable devices, this may satisfy your needs. I thought this was cool, right? So it's a 24-inch display. It's ready to go. It's portable. So I know when I worked at the state, we always were looking for portable devices to take in the different conference rooms, not have dedicated facilities. But this could also be used for your own home. It'll be a nice solution for a Teams endpoint for your home, but that could certainly be there. I don't have a price point on it, but it's just something that's coming. So now let's talk about the fun stuff, right? Teams and webinar enhancements that are starting to come. First of all, if you didn't know this, and I've been using this all week long, I absolutely love this next feature. It's actually been released since August. It may be not totally rolled out yet and available to you, but it should be anytime now, is live transcript. So as you're talking, if you're recording the meeting, the entire meeting is being recorded and transcribed real time. And not only that, it's even by speaker name. So you don't have to take notes anymore. And it does a pretty darn good job of that. It's available for download at the end of the meeting, and it's definitely helpful. If you haven't played with that or haven't seen that, definitely check that out. Power BI apps and Teams is now generally available. I've started playing with this myself. It's really cool. It saves time, so you don't have to go out to the web to go see Power BI anymore. You can integrate your Power BI reports, dashboards, report pins, project goals, all into Teams, and save yourself the time to switch out of Teams to go to the web version of Teams, the web version of Microsoft tools. So that's something you should definitely take a look at if you haven't seen that. Now let's talk about chat updates. This is really cool. So if you haven't seen this yet, this is available by the end of the year. If you haven't seen it yet, this is the ability just to type in anybody's Teams account, whether it's personal or work related or a phone number, and you can immediately start being able to chat with that person. So this is coming out by the end of the year. And this next one I want right now, because I find myself lots of times at night watching TV, looking at Twitter, see what's going on with the industry. And I always find these links and I'm like, wow, I need to put this somewhere. So what do? I email it to myself. What a waste of email, right? So now Chat with Self gives you the ability to go ahead and have a place just as a workspace, right? It enables users to send themselves a message, such as a quick idea or reminder, and it's a safe place for writing drafts so that you don't accidentally send something to somebody by accident, right? So it's a helpful it'll be located at the top of your chat window. It'll just say your name, and that's where you go to put all your local stuff that you want to send to yourself and have available at your fingertips. Chat density, another great feature that's coming, lets you customize the number of chat messages you see on the screen. There's a compact mode that actually kind of minimizes the type fit and actually squeezes it down about 50% more messages on your screen. And then there's the comfortable setting, which is the normal size and everything else. So that's something that's also coming any day now. For those of you that were bored with the 6 emojis that we have, well, Microsoft's now got 800 3D emojis coming your way. So I'm sure you'll be able to find a way to, represent yourself and your emotion at any given time with 800 emojis. This next one, schedule a specific time to send a message. That's kind of cool, right? It's kind of like the delay delivery in Outlook, where users are able to send chat messages now at a time that's convenient to them, but not maybe send it out that second, right? So you can delay the destination time of when it gets sent. And oh, by the way, you can if you're a multi-state company or organization that have people all over different time zones, if you don't know what time zone somebody's in, you can go to their contact card now, and it'll start showing you the time zone that that person's in. So that's kind of nice that you can delay your chats to people. There's some new search capabilities coming in Teams that help you stay on top of information that you need. Users can there's more filtering results and a way to toggle between tabs to find what's needed. So new search results interface with Teams, allowing them to filter results and switch between tabs and things like that, so you can find exactly what you're looking for. You're like, I know that it was a file, I know that it was on a tab. You'll be able to find it now. Order of raising hands. This is so helpful, right? So whenever you have a question, you have a question, there's 5 people raise their hands, you get a number assigned to you now, just like the deli, right? You get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the presenter can then pick on you by number of which number you are in the hand raising. That's coming. That's actually already started. I've seen it this week. Focusing on your meetings, lots of new two capabilities here. One is to be able to mute notifications, which I love. Would love to hit just one button to mute all my notifications, and also the ability to hide your own video so you're not distracted by it. And then lastly, I like this one. Users are now able to assign roles from the calendar scheduling form, which you're seeing in the animation right now. That assigning of roles was really helpful, especially with the idea of the co-organizer mode, which is coming up next. So this brings me to the whole idea of splitting up how you organize a webinar, for instance. And this is the start of the webinar features that I'm going to be talking about. And this is one that's really needed, right? You don't want to be the only person setting up a webinar. There's lots of logistics, dealing with the registration, dealing with the questions. Well, the co-organizer role provides the ability to assign multiple organizers for the meeting or the webinar, and they can have up to 10 different co-organizers assigned. And that'll enable them to do all kinds of multiple tasks, such as managing the webinar, meeting options, creating polls, controlling audio settings. This will all be generally available by the end of the year. Another theme Microsoft is touting is managing meetings before, during, and after the meeting or webinar. So still today, somewhat kind of clunky is when you manage a meeting and you're doing the pre-work of questions and answers until that question and answer thing is coming up, it's a little cumbersome to do the pre-work on a webinar today. Well, all this is going to be fixed, right? So that was one of my big pain points when we moved to this new model of doing webinars for the You Already Own It program. Doing those questions and answers was very clunky on how to do that. Well, this is going to be fixed, right? So for the next 3 slides, you'll see how far the webinar experience has come and where it's going. So if you're still using GoToMeeting, WebEx, you'll be interested in seeing these new features to see how you can possibly replace those products. And here's one of my favorites for the webinar prep before the meeting, right? The virtual green room. This is a great idea. It enables organizers and presenters to socialize, monitor, chat, QA, manage attendee settings, and share content before the event even starts. So this provides a private space separate for attendees to talk live and prep in pre-live phases. While attendees wait, they are greeted with welcome screen. They can use chat to engage or pose questions with a Q&A experience. So this is kind of some of the things I was talking about, fixing up the clunkiness, preparing that meeting in advance without sending alerts to everybody on the webinar. Hey, I just opened up the meeting. I'm trying to create a question and answer tab. And that's what happened in the past, right? If you try to do any of that stuff before the meeting starts. So if you're familiar with live events, and I don't know if many of you played with it, but it was cumbersome as well as far as being a producer, right? So you had the ability to do things like, choosing which video feed to send live out the door, right? So this new feature that's coming to webinar is kind of like a mashup between live events and webinar as a producer. So there's going to be enhanced controls for managing what the attendees see and minimizing distractions so that you're kind of producing the event and you're actually sending out what you want to send to the attendees only when you want to share it. So it's kind of a little bit more upfront during the meeting experience. Someone's going to have to be in charge of that. Again, that's why you're going to have multiple co-organizers possibly and people running these meetings. So the new Q&A feature enables a more structured question and answer experience. Organizers and presenters can mark best answers, filter responses, moderate and dismiss questions, pin posts, and all kinds of things, even such as a welcome message. So we're actually using this one today in how we're running this meeting. So the QA features have finally come a long way. Finally, right, mesh. It's what everyone's been talking about. What's it going to look like? Mesh, in keeping true to the hybrid work theme that Microsoft is promoting, not only is providing work tools for in-person meetings like we talked about with Teams rooms, for remote meetings, but now they're getting into the 2D and 3D meeting experience, right? So Mesh will now be integrated into in-person and remote meetings through personalized avatars and immersive spaces. Details are still hard to come by, but I can tell you that personalized avatars will give you control to customize your avatar and use AI to imitate movements and gestures that enable you to bring your own physical presence into the conversation, even when the camera is off. So users can connect with their eye contact and express emoticons using live reactions, probably why they now have 800. That will be represented through avatars. Organizations will also be able to create immersive spaces that resemble physical spaces and show, and even the audio is spaced out, like showing distance, for conferencing rooms, design centers, networking lounges, basically even foster some water cooler type of connections. So that's coming, and you can kind of see from the animation, that's kind of what they're envisioning for immersive spaces. These experiences will be available on Teams on the PC, mobile, and throughout mixed reality headsets in the first half of 2022. So we don't really have a good time frame on that yet. This is just a look at the avatar experience, and that is a wrap of some of the current roadmap developments launched for Teams. I put a full link of Teams roadmap items at the end of this presentation, and that'll go out on the links at the end, as the follow-up happens. So right now, Casey, if you could go ahead and share the poll, the first poll question, we're going to show, I believe we're going to show the new word cloud, which I didn't mention, which is kind of cool. And if you can go ahead and just start putting your answers in here, and you can obviously feel free to answer more than one. Go ahead and put your answers in. Yeah. Kind of cool. So just wanted to give you kind of a view and look. Oh, looks like we have a lot of interest in Viva and Teams Connect, obviously. So that's kind of cool. Awesome. Some good information. Thanks for participating in that poll. Looks like there's a good interest in Teams Connect, a decent interest in all the other items like Mesh and Viva and webinar experience features. So a good smattering, got 15 responses. That's pretty good. All right, since we're running low on time, I'm going to move right into the next section, which is all about the Power Platform. So first, if you haven't seen it yet, please check out the new Microsoft Power Platform adoption website. There's a link at the end of this presentation. Again, some great information about how to adopt Power Platform in an organized way, from a governance way. So definitely take a look at that. The theme here, though, with Power Platform is all more about integration with teams, making Power Platform a serious app development platform for line of business and enterprise apps. Last Ignite, we heard about improvements to governance controls, and building on that, this Ignite, we are now going to discuss the updates that are making this a platform easier to deploy from a business and security aspect. So how's that going to happen? So first up, from a business standpoint, there's more licensing choices, right? So there's this new, you might have heard there's a new pay-as-you-go licensing capability. Seems like Microsoft is still trying to find the sweet spot for pricing on Power Platform. As you probably know, they've already cut the prices in half for the per app and the per user cost. Now they're giving us some more licensing flexibility with this Power Apps pay-as-you-go plan. And allowing developers to use it in basically, I'll talk more about details in a couple slides here about the details of how the plan works and how it's actually metered. But some use cases for this pricing model might be, for developers, why spend buy a full-time all year long license for someone who's just maybe using it a couple months of the year. Maybe seasonal apps, that's a perfect application for this, right? Service desk ticket systems, maybe, probably 1/10 of your people probably turn a ticket in every month. Why pay for everybody for that ticketing system license for that app? So just some ideas there about some things to think about. And we'll talk more about the details and how it's metered in the next couple slides. Access and SQL connectors and APIs. So two things here. You can now go to Azure, the Azure plane, and actually convert SQL and access to Dataverse. This is huge. Think about how many enterprise apps or apps are built on Access. Not very well, probably, not certainly mobile. But this is one of the most requested capabilities from Access users. The ability to bring Access data and data entry onto a mobile device will soon be possible, and this is exactly what it's about, right? With this new connector, you can now get the data into Dataverse, where it can then be used to create powerful mobile apps. Second item. Again, back in Azure, there's now an API custom connectors location in Azure. There's a new landing page there. So Azure API management is all being managed in one location now, whether they be custom connectors or purchase connectors. It allows developers to build and distribute Power Platform connectors in just a few clicks. Some new things as far as app development, and we're going to go into this in the next few slides, and I'll show you some examples, but end-to-end branding, the ability to consolidate apps, streamlining app delivery, and then securing it on mobile devices, and we'll show you some examples of that in a second. And then lastly, Power Virtual Agents and Teams. So in the past, bots can now automatically message you for something like, for example, here's your expense report's been approved. In the past, this only used to be used in one-to-one chats, but now it's built into the teams, the actual team channels. So you can interact with it in a channel, and it becomes kind of like a virtual team member. All you have to do is just @mention it. So we had some questions in advance on the registration form. We do look at those, so please send in your registration questions whenever you register for these events about how is this new pay-as-you-go plan going to work. So let's take a look at it. First, there's two meters that you have to be aware of for the pay-as-you-go plan. The first app meter tracks unique users per month. So if that certain person comes in 15 times, they're still considered one user. So it's $10 per user per app per month for that user access. So there's two meters. The first meter is the per app meter on unique users. And then the second meter is for storage, right? So you get 1 gig of storage without being charged anything for the file, and then another for the file for the app, and then another one for the storage of the app. So for the Dataverse part. So the two combined can give you a good idea of what the costs are going to be. And you're going to say, well, I'm going to get stuck with a bill here. Well, you can actually use Azure Cost Management to track spending and manage your own budgets, just like any other Azure resource. So I highly recommend, if you're going to start playing with this, and for developers or something, definitely check that out. There's definitely a theme here with the Power Platform that they're building more and more capabilities into Azure. Think about the Power BI Premium per user based licensing, and now the connector management, and then obviously the Power Platform pay-as-you-go pricing model for Power Platform. So this is in public preview, but it's definitely coming, and there's definitely some use cases for it. So we now have the option to package Canvas apps up and create a hub or and deploy them to a store. And this is natively wrapping these packages up completely from a runtime package, from an authentication capability, from an app rendering capability, and connections to the backend for data and connectors, including the device hardware integration for mic, camera, and other hardware sensors. So if you're going to build apps, you can actually roll it all up into a deployment package, and you can send it to the Google Play Store. It's a complete 100% runtime package. And so this now gives you the ability with portability to move these apps around. You get complete control over the bootstrap, how you control the app settings, icons, and the launch experience. This is going to be starting off in the Android packaging first as a delivery, but it looks like it's in preview now, but it's going to be in public preview in 2022. So we've got a little bit of time, but just know that the enterprise deployment model and how you package up these apps natively into a real enterprise app has come a long way, and it's going a long way. But this is just an example of what it looks like from the app packaging. Now, as Canvas apps used to have individual apps, now they can all be rolled up into a hub, and then you can, go deeper into each one of the apps specifically. So it's very, very cool. This just shows the co-branding all the way from the app on the home page all the way down into the app itself on each one of the UIs. So definitely you can do branding all the way across the entire app, which is very, very cool. One other really cool thing is once you create your apps, now you got to manage them. And how are you going to manage them? Well, you can manage them through your internal app store and push them out via Microsoft Endpoint Manager now. And not only that, you can actually now, since it's in Microsoft Endpoint Manager, you can actually put conditional access on these on a per app basis. So with conditional access policies tied to the app, you can now lock down very sensitive apps and have the same conditional access policies you have for everything else. So as you can see, as we wrap this up, right, you can see the maturity and the security of deploying enterprise and line of business apps has greatly improved and is gaining real interest from developers and security professionals and being able to supply enterprise apps. Connectors, this is just a snapshot of what the connector landing page is going to look like, or it does look like in the Azure Blade, if you're into that, and where how you can transform your SQL and access tables right there in Azure. This is in public preview. Real quickly, I don't want to spend much time on this, but the ability when you're creating apps now in Canvas apps specifically, you can start commenting just like a Word document. So if you have multiple people developing a Canvas app, you can actually, in context, actually put context comments in the app to have people look at a very specific thing and then mention them. They're even talking about co-authoring. I don't know how you co-author in an app, but that should be really interesting to see how that rolls out moving forward. With that, I'm going to wrap up this and go ahead and turn it off to my man, Jimmy Briggs from the Dynamics team. Jimmy, take it away. Jimmy, I don't know if it's Jimmy. I don't know if it's me or not, but you sound really low.
Yeah, it's really low.
All right, is this better?
Much better, thank you, sir.
All right, yeah, no problem there. Switch mics. All right. So what's really cool here, this is really awesome functionality that's coming out with Microsoft Dynamics and Teams. Dynamics 365 applications are pre-built, model-driven, and Canvas applications that live on top of the Power Platform and typically make use of the Dataverse and Power Automate flows. So if you have a Power Automate license, you might have some internal applications that have been built. Those are model-driven apps. Dynamics 365 apps are pre-built by Microsoft. They provide out-of-the-box functionality as well as documentation, support, and future feature rollouts. So it's a living product that goes on, where an internal app that you might make, you have to do those tasks yourself. So just to get that out of the way about what a Dynamics 365 app is, that's kind of my favorite definition of it. What's changing and what Microsoft has done is they've enabled Teams integration with Dynamics without licensing requirements. And what that means is that now, if let's say Ken is working on an RFP and he's a licensed user for Dynamics 365 for sales, and he's putting together a proposal or a bid, but he needs to know how much material we have on hand, or pull in some other resources for some breakpoints or some project planning on that RFP. He doesn't have to worry about those other users having licenses for Dynamics to collaborate or to make use of that information. Now he can invite different people from the organization, regardless of them being licensed for Dynamics 365 at all, and share those records with them, and they can collaborate in real time using Teams. So this is a really, really interesting and cool way to bring different members together and to alleviate a lot of communication challenges that have existed throughout the past history of business applications and internal communications within your organization, especially with users trying to be interdependent with one another. So what would happen in the past or today if we weren't making use of the integration with Dynamics and Ken was working on that RFP or something? He might have to bring us all together into a conference call or a share screen. Somebody might have to open up a Word document. We might all start to sit there and spitball, put all the facts together, and then Ken has to go home after that and go and enter all of that information and bring it back into Dynamics 365 for sales so he can get together and finish putting together that bid and maybe generate some automated documents or whatnot. So now that's no longer, that doesn't have to happen anymore. And the risk of people maybe mistransposing that data and having to be a steward and handle all that information, and then you have this Word document with customer information that's floating around and flying back and forth in emails, that can go away with this change. And that allows, like Ken, essentially to just say, hey, I need these 7, 8, these different people within the organization to come together and help me collaborate on this record. And because he's the inviter, he does have to have a license for the Dynamics 365 app that's being used, but he can then invite, and all the invitees, all those other people, those other resources, they don't have to have a license for Dynamics anymore, and they can collaborate in real time using Microsoft Teams. So it's a big game changer in the way that different departments and different people throughout an organization can become interdependent on one another. And another really quick example, I know we're going fast on time, but I'll be quick here, is I thought about this one last night because I've seen it so many times, where a user might be in customer engagement, Microsoft Dynamics 365 for customer engagement, and maybe they're trying to get a hold of somebody, but it's an invalid phone number or a dead line. So they have to go and email, and maybe they know some other resources within the company that have updated contact information. Maybe there's an account manager and so on. They would have to maybe email or reach out on Teams, and then you're waiting a day for them to get back to you. And then who knows, maybe there's 2 different versions of that person, one that lives in Florida or one that lives in Massachusetts with the same name. So there's back and forth communication to make sure we get the right record and everything's working out okay. That can all die now. That doesn't have to happen anymore, because that user with customer engagement can go and ping that other person like PY or Bob or whoever and say, hey, I'm trying to fix this record. Will you come look at me really quick? And instead of having to go and decipher what's happening through email or through just chat message, now there's a new way to do that, and that's using the actual record right as it exists inside that application as it is in the Dataverse. So it's very, very truthy, and it's really, really a cool feature that Microsoft has done by removing that blocking license issue that was there in the past.
Awesome.
There's one second thing, and that's the Dynamics Teams license. So what that allows is read-only access across all Dynamics 365 apps for a user that has that license entitled to them through that Active Directory. If a user has, and this is a separate bullet point, so separate topic here, but any user in the organization who has a Dynamics Teams license, that user can then access at a read-only level all of the Dynamics 365 information and data across every Dynamics 365 app your organization might have implemented, so long as that user is set up and enabled within the environment where those applications live on the Power Platform. So if I'm a user and I have access to a production environment, and in there we have Dynamics 365 for sales, maybe we have field service or customer engagement or a collection of different applications, I don't need a single license to any of those Dynamics applications any longer. So if I'm only reading the data, and I can go in and have read-only access to that information through my user account, and my existing security rules still apply that needs to be configured, and that falls into Dynamics governance, which we do a whole workshop on exactly how to manage users and security roles and how to secure environments properly. So those things still apply in that sense, but this new license is a really cool offering that gives users the access to the data that they need. And again, both of these features are like the next generation of collaborative communication in the workspace when it comes down to the Power Platform and with D365.
Wow, that's awesome, Jimmy. And, obviously licensing and Dynamics and Power Platform is very confusing. So if you have questions about licensing, feel free to reach out to us. We'll try to get you the answers you're looking for.
Yep, absolutely. This is a really cool record that kind of speaks to both of those scenarios I was talking about. So we have Diane Plank here. We have a contact that's Charlotte. And over on the left, we have some people that we could consult on Teams, and they're listed there on the left. And so this whole thing can take place. This is a model. If you've never seen a model-driven app on the Power Platform or Dynamics 365 app, this is the customer service omnichannel app. This app could then be this screen, and this specific record could then be shared out and collaborated on throughout the organization without those license barriers being there any longer.
All right. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Again, reach out to us if you have any questions. We have probably time for, we're definitely out of time for the roundtable discussion, but we can certainly do one more poll. If you would like to go ahead and do the poll, we can do that. And then I guess we should start wrapping this up. I want to say thank you, team, for giving all these great updates. Thank you, everyone, for participating today. Just remember that next week we have part 2 of discussing Ignite updates on Azure, Data, Dev, and M365 security. So if you can't make it next week, make sure you at least register so you get the recording. And I've put together some links of a lot of the things we talked about today. They're all available here. We'll put them in the follow-up email. And then very lastly, thanks for joining us today. Here at Planet, we want to wish you all a wonderful holiday season and a happy and safe new year. We can take a couple questions if you want to stay. So let's go ahead and open it up for questions real quick. I know there was a question about Defender for Endpoint. We'll probably hit that one next week if you're still on the call. I forget who asked it in advance of the registration, but we'll definitely hit that one up next week since it's more in line with the security products that are going to be talked about next week. No questions? Raise your hand if you have a question, and otherwise we'll wrap this one up and call it a day. All right. Thank you again for joining us today, and we hope you have a wonderful and safe and happy, safe new year. Thank you.